Good afternoon, Mr. Halley. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, Chairperson.
Yes. Are you ready?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, today we intend leading the evidence of...
I'm sorry. Will somebody just adjust the aircon? It's making too much noise.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Yes, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, today we intend leading the evidence of a Colonel W.S. Mhlongo. You'll recall that he was to testify, if my recollection serves me correctly, on the 30th of July of last year. He brought an application for a postponement one day before that hearing, which you granted him, Mr. Chair. And then we're going to hear also the evidence, or the plan is to hear the evidence also of Mr. Terence Joubert. He, in fact, was supposed to testify also on the 30th of July of last year, and in fact did testify to a very limited extent on one very narrow aspect, but then the balance of his evidence was postponed to the hearing for today. Now, before you, Mr. Chair, you would have a bundle of documents which is marked bundle LEA 10. Bundle LEA 10 consists of 4 different compartments. You will find in that bundle an exhibit Y10, which relates to the testimony that is relevant to Colonel Mhlongo. Then you will find a Y11, exhibit Y11, which is relevant to the testimony of Mr. Terence Joubert. And then you will find a bundle or an exhibit Y12, and that relates to Captain Edward Zuma. You'll recall that as a result of the evidence of Mr. Joubert, which was given on the last occasion, the necessity or the need for Captain Zuma to come and testify has fallen away, so we will not delve into his testimony today. And then in exhibit Y13, you will find the...
By the way, is it Colonel Zuma, did he testify? He did.
He did not.
He did not.
It became unnecessary for him to testify because he was a commissioner of oaths of one of the affidavits relating to...
Oh, yes, and Mr. Joubert indicated that he was not...
He did not dispute that he was the commissioner of oaths, and
that was placed on record.
Correct. And that is why he led that limited evidence.
Yes, okay.
And then you will find a bundle, an exhibit Y13, and that relates to a Mr. Brian Padiachi. That evidence relates to certain recordings and transcripts of recordings that were taken in terms of the Act 70 process. That evidence will not be led today. So we would be confined essentially to exhibits Y10 and exhibits Y11 today. During the course of the evening, late yesterday, we were given notice.
The evidence relating to the recording, why will it not be led today?
In relation to Mr. Padiachi, or rather Colonel Padiachi, what had happened was that we...
Or he is the one who needs to give evidence about it?
He would need to give evidence about those matters.
Yeah.
Depending on whether there's a challenge to any aspect of his evidence, he may or may not be required to give evidence. Hitherto, there has been no challenge, but there's also been no indication of whether there will be a challenge or will not be a challenge. When I say that, I'm talking about formally. Informally, we've been advised that there will be a challenge, which means that there will be a necessity for him to come and testify and to play the transcripts. But his evidence doesn't go any way beyond the actual content of what is on the recordings.
Yeah, his evidence relates to the authenticity of the recording.
So his evidence relates to the circumstances in which the recordings were obtained.
Okay.
And there may be a challenge to the legality, I understand.
Yes.
Informally, and I say informally because it's been conveyed to us but never been put as a formal challenge, but I accept that there will be a challenge to that. And then secondly, there'll be a challenge to the legality, and there may well be a challenge also to the authenticity. And our learned friends will let us know as far as that is concerned.
By the way, was there a recording of the conversation between Mr. Joubert and Colonel Mhlongo?
There was indeed, but that stands on a separate footing because...
Yes, that's separate from the one you are talking about.
Correct. So we must distinguish. In fact, some confusion has been caused in these proceedings because of the different recordings that have been floating about. There are, in fact, 3 sets of recordings. Colonel Padiachi refers to one set of recordings, which at the moment consists of 7 different recordings that have been transcribed. The recordings relate to a number of different witnesses, and for present purpose, I won't identify who the witnesses are, but who the different people are that are the speakers on those recordings. So that stands separately. Then in relation to the second recording, that's a recording that was between Colonel Mhlongo and Mr. Joubert. Then there was a third recording that was between, as I understand it, between Ms. Queen Mhlongo and Mr. Mhlongo. And that recording is the one recording that has apparently gone missing. There's been a confusion as to which of the different recordings have gone missing. That is the recording that has in fact gone missing.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
So there will be an application for a postponement, and I'll introduce my learned friend shortly insofar as that is concerned. Then if the, if the evidence is led, Mr. Joubert will testify via a video link. He will be testifying from the NPA offices in KwaZulu-Natal, and Colonel Mhlongo would also be testifying via a video link, and he will be testifying from his home. Mr. Joubert is not represented in these proceedings, but Colonel Mhlongo is represented. He's represented by Mr. Advocate Manala and SC and Advocate Madiba. At this stage, we've agreed that Advocate Manala will launch the application for a postponement at this stage.
Yeah, where are the papers for the postponement application?
If I can beg leave, pardon me, my lord, if I can beg leave to arrange for it to be handed up.
And then counsel for Mr. Mhlongo can then place themselves on record.
If I might, just before Advocate Manala does so, just draw one further thing to your attention. If we do get to the evidence of Colonel Mhlongo, dependent on what happens to the application for a postponement, he will be testifying through an interpreter.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. We've made arrangements for that.
Where is the interpreter?
The interpreter is present.
Yeah, but I need to see the
sworn.
documentation. Have you made sure that it's worded correctly? Because some of the certificates are not worded correctly.
What I'll do is I'll try to read through it because it was given to me just shortly before and trying to prepare for the postponement application and everything. But I will read through it right
Reverend Stimela will know which ones, which wording is correct because he is supposed to have kept previous ones that I said would be correct. So, but in the meantime, I'll deal with the postponement application, so that might give time, if in case the wording is not correct, for it to be done in accordance with previous ones, the certificate, and
Thank you,
and then once we are done, depending on the outcome of the postponement application, then I can look at the documents.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, okay. Counsel for Mr. Mhlongo, you can, they will sanitize and then on the podium, and then you can come forward.
Good afternoon, Chairperson.
Good afternoon.
Chairperson, firstly, let me express some gratitude to my learned friend, Mr. Hali. He has elevated me too soon. I'm not yet there, but we hope we'll be there sometime in life.
Maybe it's Professor.
Let's hope so, indeed.
So you must embrace the prophecy.
Hence, I express sincere gratitude to him. Yes, Chair, I'm Manala ME. I appear together with my learned friend, Mr. L.J. Madiba, and we are instructed by Mr. Maringa of Maringa Terence.
Yes, is the surname Nala or Manala?
Manala, M-A.
Or M-A-L-A-L-A?
That is certain.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yes.
Thank you. You from the Durban Bar, Joubert Bar?
No, I'm from the Tshwane Society of Advocates. It is based in Tshwane with chambers at mainland Main.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. Chairperson, as it has been said by Leonard Friends.
Well, before you proceed, why is it not a good enough reason for me to dismiss this application that your instructing attorney can't spell practicing correctly?
We can't spell?
Practicing.
Well, I suspect it would have been a case of an autocorrection. So the computer would have jumped. Yes, indeed. It is not correct.
So you are defending him.
It does indeed happen.
Well, in 1999, after I had been appointed to the then Transvaal Provincial Division, and in my first admissions that I was doing, I found that a lot of lawyers don't know how to spell the verb practice. They always put C, which is for a noun, instead of S. And I thought that I needed to give them quite a hard time for that and say, at least you should know how to to spell practice if you want to practice.
Yes.
Okay, all right, let's proceed.
Yes, we are well aware that we shouldn't make that mistake now anymore.
Yes.
Now, Chairperson, you've already been told that there is an application for postponement and that the application was formally transmitted to the Commission yesterday. So part of the explanation would be to address you as to why the application was made late in the proverbial 11th hour. You'd also have seen that the application is made by the attorney of record, Mr. Maringa, and in the course of our address to you, we'll also set out the reasons why it had to be him and not Colonel Mhlongo in his own capacity. Now, Chairperson, I've just now been presented with the application for postponement in a bundle similar to the one that you have there. And I'm going to try acquaint myself of the numbering, but I'm assuming safely that the last 2 digits are the page numbers. And as I refer to each page, I should use those numbers as they appear. Now, Chairperson, I want to start off with what we characterize as the commencement of what then crystallizes into a course of action on Thursday afternoon. I'm going to refer you, Chairperson, to page 5, 6, and 7. Now, from page 5, at the bottom there, paragraph 13, you will note, Chairperson, that it is indicated that on Friday, the 5th February, the Commission served to the attorney of record of Colonel Mhlongo the summons directing that he should appear before the Commission today. So what you have there is a 7-day notice period. He's told on the 5th to say you have to appear before the Commission on the following Friday, being 12th February. Now, as you turn the page, Chairperson, you will see bullet points. There are dark bullet points and there are fainter bullet points. Now, those bullet points, Chairperson, illustrate what was said in the summons. He was invited to come and address all of these matters, which are bulleted here, including these sub-bullets, which you see in a faint color, and ultimately all matters incidental to the aforesaid. That is what you find at page 7 of the application. Now, upon receiving this summons. Over the weekend, telephone correspondence ensues between the attorney as well as the legal team, arranging a pre-hearing meeting for Monday with the aim of securing an easy pathway for Friday to deal with provisional matters related to the hearing. Now, at that pre-hearing conference, which was then arranged and convened, I believe, on Monday afternoon at around 2:30. During that meeting, we, and by we I mean the legal team of Mhlongo, then raised 3 queries in the form of objections to these bullet points, to say we have 3 difficulties with what you say he must come deal with before the commission. The first one, which I believe it is not controversial between us, was the aspect of his health, to say then he should be permitted to appear before the commission remotely. I'll tell you in a moment what happened of that discussion, but it is important that you note, for purposes of an explanation as to why we had to come this late with the application. We were then directed to mount a formal application for his appearance remotely, but I'll come to that aspect in a very short while. So essentially, then you left with 2. Of those 2, we raise an issue about the evidence of Mr. Joubert, and you find that, Chair, at page 7 of the application under paragraph 14. 14.1 and 14.2. At 14.1, this is where we raise an objection as against the evidence of Joubert, Mr. Joubert, Terence Joubert, apologies. Now, there what is indicated is that his evidence, to the extent that they say implicates Colonel Mhlongo, ought to be preceded by a notice in terms of Rule 3. Now, when we have in that discussion, it immediately emerges that no, a notice in terms of Rule 3 has been transmitted, but transmitted to Mhlongo's email. It was not availed to the attorney, but it was availed to Mhlongo himself, who you would see in the affidavit says he didn't receive it, but we make no issue of that. So, upon having raised this issue, the parties then agree that as soon as we conclude, that notice, together with the accompanying annexures, will be availed to the legal team of Mhlongo on that very day, that is Monday, and it was subsequently availed at around 8 o'clock. That was the first aspect. Now, the second aspect was with reference to the that is the faint bullet points, where you see the recordings, starting from page 6. Those faint bullet points, we then objected to the use of these recordings. That is the recording between, Chairperson would see that at page 6, the last faint, dark bulletin. There under you'd see there are faint sub-bulletins. It refers to all matters relating to or emanating from the telephonic conversations between Mr. Tosen Pandey and an unknown male /S on this date. And the next one is that of the same person.
And let's just focus on the important things. What are the reasons why Mr. Mhlongo seeks a postponement?
Yes, Chairperson, I just to round up on these 2 points, and then we should be there in a minute, and I'll clarify the very reasons why we say so.
The reasons for the postponements are the ones that I'm most interested in.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Chairperson, once we then raise those 2 objections, including the legality objection, this is working against the background of the whole summons. Now, a minute later on during that day, we received the Rule 33 notice, which then affords 14 days within which to react to the evidence of Terence Joubert, and we'll take that to say it may run either from the Friday when it was transmitted, or it may run...
If you are comfortable to take off the mask, that might help. But if you are not comfortable, I'll listen. I hear you, but I would hear you much more clearer.
Okay, let me make sure.
Yes,
that,
because I think there is enough social distancing.
Yes, let me make sure that we communicate his case clearly. So, Chairperson, we're at a point where the two objections were raised. The first one, we availed that notice in terms of Rule 3. The second one, we raised an issue of legality. And when we get the Rule 3.3 notice, which then affords 14 days, we do so on Monday in the evening.
Well, the Rule 3.3 notice, I see in the papers and that what the legal team has communicated to you ultimately is that the evidence that will be led today, to which Colonel Mhlongo would, or about which he would be questioned, relates to Mr. Joubert's evidence about, I think, their conversation.
Yes.
And not a lot of other things. Now, as far as that is concerned, I'm under the impression that Mr. Mhlongo would have received a 3.3 notice sometime last year.
Yes, that is correct.
So there should be no issue about a 3.3 notice in respect of Mr. Joubert's evidence.
Related to that part of the
related to that part, yeah.
Yes, but Chairperson would recall the 3.3 notice was not given from Mr. Terence Joubert. It was given from the evidence of General Boysen and that of Ngasana. Those witnesses were mentioning this conversation as part of the reasons why they come to the conclusion they came to. They relied also on his affidavits, which were attached as annexed. So when Colonel Mhlongo responded to them, he merely took the view, of course, firstly guided by your previous rulings, that he cannot apply to cross-examine them because you cannot come and say, well, I dispute that which was said to you, and all of that. Chairperson recalls that line of rulings. So what he then did, he put up an affidavit where Terence Joubert moves to say the earlier affidavit which was relied upon is not an affidavit of his. So he then asserts that position and leaves the matter there. So to the extent that he has to deal with all of those aspects, at least relating to that, he then relies on this second affidavit, which he then avails. But what you then have, Chairperson, subsequently is that around the 24th of July, 2020, Mr. Joubert deposes to another affidavit. In that affidavit, he resuscitates the earlier affidavit, which he had distanced himself from. Now and this is where I should take you, Chairperson, to page 13. This is page 13 as well as page 12.
Gone through the whole affidavit in the meantime.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson.
Yeah, but you can make the points. Yeah.
Yes. So there, Chairperson, you'd find a letter that is written on 28th of August last year. This is after we had left here on the 30th. In this letter at paragraph 4.5 on page 13, Colonel Mhlongo requests an affidavit of Terence Joubert because he saw him at the commission through his attorney, of course, and he now knows he's available as a witness. Then he makes a request. This request is made on the 28th of August last year to say, avail his evidence to me so that I can confront him directly.
That is the third affidavit of
That is the
Mr.
third
Joubert.
affidavit.
Yeah.
Now, if you then turn 2 more pages, or rather, yes, at page 16, you'll find a follow-up letter. A follow-up letter requesting a response to that letter which requests that information. Now, here we don't have it. We requested for it in August as well as in September. To a point when we are given that on Friday, and you see the history as to how the days evolved. In fact,
So you only get Mr. Joubert's third affidavit last Friday.
no. We say, Chairperson, we got it on Monday after a pre-meeting conference. And why
Monday this week?
Yes.
Okay.
Why we say that is because the summons were served on the attorney. So we know then that the commission knows to communicate with Mhlongo, they communicate with the attorney, to say that the email was sent to him and that there's no proof of receipt from his part and all of those. Then it makes the Friday a difficulty, but whichever one that chairperson accepts, either Friday or Monday. We've set out how the clock then ticked going forward from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, leading to today. So after we mount this application, because we want to listen to Mr. Joubert's evidence, decide how to deal with it within the scheme of the Rule 33, we are then told that no, in fact, the affidavit, the third affidavit, was availed to you on the 27th of July 2020. We are then given an email which chairperson would have found, I believe, just before the affidavit.
Well, I didn't look at the annexures.
Yes, let me refer you to that.
Yeah, what page?
Yes, the email you find at page 25.
Okay, yes.
Now, that page 25, chairperson, is addressed by William Nicholson on Monday, 27 July, at 20 minutes after 2 o'clock in the morning. You would see there just on the last part.
There are 3 emails on that page. Which is the right one that you're looking at?
Yes. Now, we're looking at the first email, the top email.
At the top one, yeah.
Yes. So there, chairperson would see that it is addressed to the first addressee there too. It is the attorney of record of of Colonel Mhlongo.
Yes.
Now it is addressed.
Was that before your appearance or
Yes,
after?
that is before the appearance
Yes.
of 30 July.
Yes.
But here's the difficulty, and this
I seem to have thought that by the time when I granted the postponement, all the affidavits that all the 3 affidavits would have been in your team's possession. That was the impression, so.
that was not the position because, as you'd see also from the affidavit, it is stated that we came to know of the availability of Mr. Terence Joubert on the date of the 30th. We came to know then that he was available as a witness, and that is why we took a different approach in relation to the approach of his evidence. But Chairperson, I want us to deal slightly with a dispute that then arises on this score.
So, but I want you to say to me the reasons for a postponement are A, B, C, D.
Yes.
Then you can elaborate if you need to elaborate under each one of them.
It is because we did not receive the affidavit.
Or the third affidavit.
The third affidavit.
Until Monday.
Until Monday.
Okay, how many pages is the affidavit?
Chairperson, that is the other aspect. Now, reading the affidavit, and we've said that out, and I'll tell you just in a moment where you'd find that.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the affidavit. Yes, you'd find that from page 9 going through to 10. The difficulty that we have, and you would have seen the medical evidence around his state of health, is that you cannot consult him between Monday and Thursday because he's unable to travel outside KZN. The only model that you have available is the telephonic model. You must telephone either by those other apps and all of that to then gain contact with him and consult. He's uncomfortable with consulting because based on what you have here, there's clear evidence that his calls are intercepted and are monitored. So what we had, and this is in terms of a solution to what we have as a challenge, what we had resolved was that we should make time in the course of next week, in the first 3 days, the legal team should travel down to KZN to be with him and to deal with the affidavit and to finalize what has to be done in relation thereto. And that would still, and I know, Chairperson, I shouldn't be saying it this way, but eventually it is what it is. That would still then be within the 14 days which in terms of the regulation is a standard fair period of fair procedure. So what we propose is not an indefinite aspect of postponement. It's just that we need to be at least within those 2 days. And part of the reason supporting that is that absent a specific indication, at least from the legal team, to say the 14 days allowed period should be truncated, we submit that those 14 days should be allowed and that we should be able to be back within a matter of a week.
Well, what did you say about the fact that the email at page 25 appears on the face of it to have sent you the affidavit?
Yes.
To the attorney?
Yes. With that, we say the following. One, it was around early morning hours. Now, a lot of things would happen with emails in that stage, but we're not asserting that as a fact. What we rely upon is this. If you look at the letter of the 28th, that letter was re-emphasized again on the 5th in September. We are demonstrating that we do not have. Now, for somebody that knows that he had already sent that affidavit, one would have expected, one, to say, no, I've sent you that affidavit and I've done so on this day. But for what it is worth, have it again. And then the matter would have been put to rest there. Now, what you also see is that the subsequent notice, which we say either Friday or Monday, comes with these annexures. And it also bothers one to say, but if it was sent all along, why send it again and why send it now? Because you would have easily said, here's the notice, you have all of those documents. So we say, even if indeed ex facie this document, it does appear that it was sent as it is here, we say our subsequent conduct of requesting it ought to enable one to come to a conclusion that maybe something had happened to that email. Emails at this hour of night easily...
And you say that the situation could have been avoided by, if the legal team had responded to not one letter, but 2 letters
Yes.
that were sent.
Yes.
Of course, one can hear what they have to say about that. Then when they didn't respond also from your side, then there was silence over quite a number of months.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Chairperson, that aspect is not sufficiently canvassed as to what further steps
to say
did he take.
from your side, why if there was no response, did you just leave it like that for so long?
Yes. But
Yeah.
the best I
But
can...
the legal team, if indeed the position that they did not respond, they should have responded.
Yes,
The
that
Commission's
is the
legal team as well.
difficulty we have. And Chair, one would think, just in closing, one would think that the legal team decides which witnesses to bring and so on, based on the developments you'd also have had when they said it has now become not necessary for, I believe, Captain Zuma not to testify because his evidence was overtaken by events. So you'd also apply that logic with Mhlongo to say, if the Commission is not responding or coming back to him, he may be entitled to assume that he's no longer needed as a witness at that forum. So you would then have no reason to take other positive steps beyond the 2 letters.
Of course, if I give you a postponement, then we would continue with the evidence of Mr. Joubert and then have Colonel Mhlongo's evidence quite soon.
Yes.
We could be looking at an evening session, maybe if you were to file Ms. Colonel Mhlongo's response to the merits, as it were, because I think you make the point that previously he was content to simply rely on Mr. Joubert's second affidavit. So now, after being aware of the third affidavit of Mr. Joubert, he appreciates that he needs to deal with the merits of the alleged conversation. So that's the affidavit you're looking at filing.
Yes, Chairperson.
Yes.
That is the affidavit we're looking at filing.
Yes.
And
I don't want you to break COVID regulations. not about the mask.
Oh,
I
yes.
didn't hear you correctly, but when you were talking about 14 days on consultation, I wasn't sure whether you were talking about consulting within 14 days or. But the isolation is 10 days now, isn't it? I think the isolation, is it not on isolation?
as Chairperson, what seems to be the position from the medical?
Or where you talk about 14 days of the Rule 33 notice?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we say if you compute from, say, the Monday, which we contend it would be a fairer date, we would still be within the 14 days if we do everything by the end of next week and file those affidavits.
Well, you see, you would only be entitled to 14 days if you show that you did not receive the affidavit in July last year.
Yes.
And as I understand your argument, you are not asserting that it was not received. What you are asserting is it may or may not have been received, but your instructing attorney was unaware of it having been sent to him, to his email. And that's why he wrote the letters that he wrote.
Yes.
Now, if I approach the matter on the basis, not necessarily that it was not sent in July, then if I don't approach it on the basis that it was not sent, we can't use the 14 days. The 14 days would have to be used if I find as a fact that it was not sent in July. You see?
Yes.
So my understanding of your argument is that you are not going that far to say it was not sent. You are saying at least he was not aware, otherwise he would not have asked.
Yes.
You know.
And
so if we then proceed on that basis, then the 14 days doesn't apply.
Yes. So I made an illustration of 14 days, Chairperson, to say even if you accept that it may have been sent as it appears from 25, there is a standing rule that you find in the regulation that says fair procedure would entitle a person affected to a number of 14 days. Now, what we're dealing with is not a mechanical application of that, but an objective assessment of that fact.
You are not relying on the rules. You're simply saying we know what the basis on which we are asking you to make a decision.
Yes.
We are not saying find as a fact that the affidavit was not sent in July last year. But we are saying this is what has happened. For whatever reason, we did not become aware of it, or maybe we have not even checked whether or not technologically it was received. But
yes.
The fact that we wrote these letters indicates that we were not aware
yes.
That it had been sent. And the fact that the legal team didn't respond to the letters, if they had responded and said it was sent, then we would have known and we would not have been in this situation.
That is the position.
But all you have to say in that regard is you asking to be given a fair opportunity to respond.
Yes.
Without the 14 days.
Yes. No, we're not even insisting on the 14 days because if one looks at it, as you indicated, we could have dealt with it even from the Monday after it was received. But for reasons that we set out here, we're also still even unable to deal with it as such. So as part of the solution, we are suggesting that we should make ourselves available to travel to Natal within the first 2-3 days of the following week.
If I grant the postponement, would you and your team and Mhlongo move mountains to make sure we can proceed before the end of next week with his evidence? In other words, would you be able to file his response to the affidavit at some stage in the course of next week? And could we look at an evening session when he can give evidence and the question?
Yes. Filing the affidavit, we can manage to do it in the next week. And the hearing, I know we have just one difficulty with a Thursday, which is also out of town in Mafikeng, so the traveling to and fro. If it is something that is around Friday late or Saturday afternoon thereabout, we can be able to present ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, let me hear what Mr. Halley has to say.
Thank you, Chairperson. Those then would be ours.
Thank you. He will sanitize first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, can I commence by saying, firstly, in relation to the affidavit of Mr. Joubert, and that we'll refer to the first, second, and third affidavit. The third affidavit is the one which has become the bone of contention in his proceedings, and particularly whether they've received that particular affidavit. Well, my learned friend has referred you to one email, which he says may or may not have come to their attention, from what I understand from the debate that has taken place over here. But with respect, it's not confined to that. We, in fact, sent it to them on 2 occasions, not just one. So if I can refer you to the second...
Okay, I'm sorry. The affidavit of Mr. Joubert that starts at page 26, is that the third affidavit? Is that what I refer to as the third affidavit? That's the one that was sent?
Correct. This is the one that was served on page 26.
Okay.
And this particular affidavit that's been referred to over here is the one which is attached to the email that has been prepared by Mr. Nicholson, who is one of the evidence leaders.
Yes.
Later on, if I can take you further down along the same bundle to page 44 of the same bundle. And you will see that this is from Boipelo B. Rachakana, and it's addressed once again to Mr. Ringa, who's the attorney for Colonel Mhlongo. And it says, please find the attached letter for your attention.
Letter is the one at 45.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, and there were additional attachments to this particular email. And I'll
This is 3 days before the
These
hearing.
are 3 days before the hearing.
Yeah.
And it says at page 45 at paragraph 22, it's dated the 27th of July of 2020, and in paragraph 2 it says, as you're aware, Advocate Mxolisi Sandile Oliver Nkosana testified on the 12th of June of 2019, and upon further presentation of his evidence before the Commission on the 19th of August, an audio recording of the conversation between your client and Mr. Terence Joubert, which had been dealt with by Nkosana during the previous testimony, was played. We enclose a copy of this recording. So we give them the recording itself, together with the transcript already sent to your client, together with his Rule 3.3 notice in respect of Nkosana's evidence for your client's consideration. Then 3, the transcript of Advocate Nkosana's evidence testimony on the 12th of June 2019 and 19 August 2019 with regard to the recording is available on the Commission's website. Your client should expect questions from the evidence leaders concerning this recording. On the following page, at page 46, paragraph 4.
I'm sorry, what is the point? What is your point about the letters at page 45?
So what has transpired, as far as this is concerned, is that we give them a copy of the actual recording itself. That's the recording which is the subject matter of this dispute. So that recording is given to them. Then attached to the email is also, and unfortunately you can't see it over here on the actual email itself, but I'll refer you to an earlier email where we deal with this. Attached to this email is also the affidavit of Mr. Joubert. It's attached to this email.
The third affidavit.
The third affidavit. So it hasn't been sent to them only once. It's actually been sent to them
But the letter
twice.
doesn't say anything about that, eh?
So
The letter stroke email at page 45 and pages 45 and 46 doesn't say anything about Mr. Joubert's affidavit being attached, isn't it? Because that's what I was looking for when I was
Yes.
reading.
So what we do is then, because like I say, you can't see it over here on the email itself because it's obviously an embedded document. It's not referred to in the letter, but it's an embedded document which is attached to this email.
Yes.
So that it forms part of the email. The email, unfortunately, only refers to the actual letter.
But somebody needs to say that.
But which is what I'm going to take you to now, man.
Yeah.
If I can take you to page 20, pardon me, Mr. Chair. Page 20.
20.
This is a letter that was written today, which has been sent off by the Commission, Secretariat. And if I could just refer you to, you will bear with me, to page 21, at the foot of that page, paragraph 9. On 27 July 2020, 2 days before the previous hearing, the following was sent to you. A, Mr. Joubert's affidavit of 24 July 2020, and we attach marked A, a copy of Advocate Nicholson's email in confirmation. I've taken you, Mr. Chair, to that email already. And then a letter dated the 27th of July 2020 from the then Secretary, Ms. Shabalala, and we attach a copy of that letter marked B. In the letter, confirmed that we enclose a copy of the recording together with the transcript. That's the passage I've already read to you. And then C, a copy of the recording of the conversation between Mr. Joubert and Mr. Mhlongo, and a copy of the transcript of the aforesaid recording. So what's been attached, sorry, and if I could just correct myself here, I did say that there was the affidavit which was attached as an embedded document. It seems from a reading of this here that that's in fact incorrect, and I should just correct that. In fact, what was attached was the recording and attached a copy of the transcript. The copy of the affidavit of Mr. Joubert was actually attached only to Mr. Nicholson's to Mr. Nicholson's email. So I should just correct that. My apologies for that. So the point is that neither of these documents have necessarily been challenged per se. On the face of it, the documents have gone through. The email appears to have gone through. On the face of it, there's no challenge to that. What subsequently happens, which is what my learned friend places stock on, is the fact that on the 28th of August, what is written is a letter from Mr. Moringa, in which at page 13 he says the following in paragraph 4.5.
What page is the letter?
it starts off at page 12, but the relevant passage appears from page 13.
Yeah.
He says, to this end, Colonel Mhlongo proposes that the Commission should avail to him the evidence of Joubert.
I'm sorry, where are you reading from on
Paragraph
page 13?
Pardon me, page 13 at paragraph 4.5.
Okay.
He says, to this end, Colonel Mhlongo proposes that the Commission should avail to him the evidence of Joubert and that he will respond thereto within the scheme of the rules of the Commission. Now, it's not entirely clear what has been referred to over here, but it seems when he talks about the evidence of Mr. Joubert, and
The transcript.
he may be referring to the actual transcript of the recording, which, as we know, has been given to him. He may be referring to the affidavit. He may also be referring to the possibility of Mr. Joubert, Mr. Joubert's evidence that what had been given on the day of the 30th of July. It's not entirely clear, and it's true that there's no response specifically to that paragraph. But what there is a response to is the balance of this letter. Now, let me just be clear about what is contained in this letter. This letter is concerned, if I may point out, is concerned with the evidence of Mr. Terence Joubert, and we've already dealt with that. That appears under paragraph 4.1 to 4.5. It also deals with the evidence of Colonel Padiachi, and that's dealt with at paragraphs 4.7 and 4.9. So it's not correct when my learned friend says, as he does, that Annexure B is a second call for what is contained in that letter, because that letter is a globular response to the issue relating to Colonel Padiachi. And in fact, there's an opportunity. The issue that had arisen was whether Colonel Mhlongo would listen to the evidence, or rather listen to the recording of that Colonel Padiachi had created in KwaZulu-Natal, or whether he could listen to it in Gauteng. Colonel Padiachi had adopted the stance that he would only provide it to him to be listened to over here. He was not prepared to make it. And in fact, we transmitted that to you on the last occasion as well. Colonel Padiachi was not prepared to make it available over a recording. And he said that they had to come over here. He would provide all the instrumentation to make it available to them. So the issue that was the bone of contention at that stage was largely in relation to Colonel Padiachi's recordings. That, and what was being asked for on the 4th of September, as we understood it, was the question of whether we could have the hearing of those recordings take place in Johannesburg, or whether it could be done in KwaZulu-Natal. On Colonel Mhlongo's version, or on Colonel Mhlongo's request, he wanted to be played in KwaZulu-Natal. Colonel Padiachi was insisting that it be played here in Johannesburg. Ultimately, Colonel Padiachi acceded to the request. After that, this issue went silent. We were in those circumstances. There was no further correspondence after that.
Well, he says, his counsel says, you didn't, as the legal team, respond to 2 letters they sent.
But that's my point, my lord, is that we did respond. And the response was by acceding to the request. So the
Okay, I'm sorry, let's get that right. Where do you say the response is?
If we could if you could turn with me.
Is it the letter at page 45? Is it 45?
Sorry,
No,
page
that was
20.
July last year. Where is the response?
What I'm saying is this. There was a response. There was no letter that was written, but we responded to the request. The request was whether we could have this thing dealt with in KwaZulu-Natal or here. I'm not saying that there was a response by way of a letter.
The correspondence that counsel for Mr. Mhlongo referred to is correspondence that was saying, please let us have Mr. Joubert's third affidavit.
Pardon me, ma'am.
Counsel for Mr. Mhlongo, Mr. Malala, his point was, subsequent to the date that was meant for hearing last year, subsequent to that date, that means in the second half of last year, he said, Mr. Mhlongo's attorney wrote 2 letters to the commission saying, please let us have Mr. Joubert's affidavit. And he says the legal team did not respond to both of those letters.
So what he is saying is this, if I understand correctly. He's saying that there was no letter that responded to it. Now that's not entirely true, because there was a letter that responded to certain aspects, an email, in fact an email from myself, which is attached to the papers.
Was the letter talking about the affidavit or about something else? Because the point he's making,
something else.
Yeah, that is the thing. The point he's making is 2 times we wrote to the legal team of the commission and said, please let us have Mr. Joubert's affidavit. Yes. And he says we never received a response to those 2 letters. Obviously, if you write to them about other matters, that's not a response to those letters, which say, let us have Mr. Joubert's affidavit.
So the point I'm making is that insofar as the request, or insofar as he speaks about paragraph 4.5,
you know, at this stage, I just want to talk about his contention that although we can't dispute that Mr. Joubert's affidavit was sent to Mhlongo's attorney in July, we were not aware that it had been sent, assuming it had been sent. And that's why we sent not 1 letter, but 2 letters to the legal team. And there was no response to those 2 letters, and in those letters we're saying, please let us have Mr. Joubert's affidavit.
My response to that, the response to that is, I'm agreeing that there's no letter that is a response. I'm not agreeing that there's no response, because what I am saying is that there is a response, but those responses were dealt with through telephonic and SMS exchanges. So it wasn't dealt with by way of a formal letter or a formal email responding to what they said, but it was dealt with.
Was there a response by way of an SMS or WhatsApp message that said, that responded to the issue of the affidavit, to those letters?
No, there wasn't a response that dealt with.
Yeah, because that's what I'm looking for at the moment.
But just subject to this, if I can say, insofar as they asked for, insofar as we speak about the affidavit, I just want to be cautious and say that the letter doesn't ask for the affidavit, it asks for the evidence.
Let's go to the letters. Let me see the 2 letters he was talking about, because I didn't read the letters.
So the first one is at page 13, Mr. Chair.
1-3.
That is correct.
Yes.
So he says, to this end, Colonel Mhlongo proposes that the Commission should avail to him the evidence of Joubert. So and then he goes on to say, and that he will proceed, he will respond thereto within the scheme of the rules of the Commission. What I'm saying
is that the first of the 2 letters?
That's the first of the 2 letters.
That's 28 August.
The second letter is at page 16.
It's not specific that he's talking about the affidavit.
That's my point. And I'm not making anything higher than that.
It could be meaning the recording of the conversation.
Correct. So that's the only point I make as far as that's concerned.
Yes, okay.
And for present purposes, obviously we'll get into the debate at a later stage of what is the implications of that and whether they can rely upon the fact that we had in fact sent it to them at an earlier stage. But for present purpose, I'm only making the point that he talks about the evidence. He doesn't talk about an affidavit. So Then
And the second letter?
is at page 16 of the same bundle.
Yeah.
And he says, we refer to your letter to our letter dated the 28th of August 2020 in response to your correspondence of the 26th of August of 2020 regarding the above matter. Your undertaking to the effect that a formal response will be furnished to us in due course is much appreciated. We request herewith to be updated with developments in response to our letter referred to in paragraph 1 above. In other words, to their letter of 28th of August. Now, so neither one...
So part of the point you're making is that those letters don't make it clear that they are talking about the affidavit.
Correct. And I'm not putting it any higher than that.
Yeah.
I'm just making the point that they don't speak specifically to the affidavit.
Yes.
So in the context of that, I'm making now a third point in relation to the earlier letter so that you can understand how it is that when I say that we've responded to it, you can understand then, Mr. Chair, how it is that I say we have responded. So what I'm saying is that if you consider the earlier letter of the 28th of August, the earlier letter is not confined to considerations relating to Mr. Joubert alone. It's also it concerns considerations relating to Mr. Padiachi. So the issue that has been then became the focal point of the interaction between the parties, Mr. Mhlongo and the Commission, and in relation to Colonel Mhlongo, was specifically the issue of whether Colonel Mhlongo could listen to the recording either in Johannesburg or in Durban. So there was ongoing interaction between the parties in relation to that issue. So, and where do I get that on the papers which are before us? If I can take you to, and I've referred you already, Mr. Chair, to page 20, which is the letter that was sent off today by the Secretariat.
You said you want me to go to what page?
Pardon me, page 20, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Yes.
I just want to take you to the passages in this where we refer to the letter, to what transpired subsequent to September.
Yeah.
If you would just bear with me, Mr. Chair, I'm just trying to locate it. Unfortunately, this was just made available to me shortly before the hearing.
I want to wrap this up. We've
pardon me,
reaching
Mr. Chair,
an hour mark dealing with the postponement application.
If I could take you to the bottom, the foot of page 23.
Yeah.
We stress that the letter relied upon by you, dated the 4th of September, had nothing whatsoever to do with Mr. Joubert's evidence.
Yeah.
This related to your request that Colonel Padiachi's recording be played to him in KwaZulu-Natal, as opposed to in Gauteng. These recordings were subsequently played to your client in your presence in October of 2020, and the transcripts thereof were provided to you shortly thereafter. So what we're saying is, insofar as that's concerned, is that the issue that appeared to remain in contention related to whether we could play it in KwaZulu-Natal or in Gauteng. Ultimately, it was played in KwaZulu-Natal. The transcripts were made available to him. So in the context of that, the true issue that, or this issue relating to the evidence, whether it includes the actual affidavit or something less, that issue never arose again after that. It only arose then for the first time when we had the pre-hearing conference on Monday. So what we're saying is that on the evidence as it stands,
Yeah.
or on the documentation as it stands, it seems that there are there's at least one email that was sent containing that affidavit. There is other correspondence which referred not to the affidavit, but attached as copies the actual recording and the transcript. We would submit that with respect.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Let me hear what Mr. Malala has in reply.
Thank you.
The one thing which seemed to count in his favor was the idea that they asked the legal team to furnish them with an affidavit by way of 2 letters to which the legal team didn't respond. So, Mr. Malala, as you come forward, that is the one issue which was counting in your favor, but I think the vagueness of the letter or letters is not helping you. As we speak, I'm more inclined, subject to what you will now say in reply, I'm more inclined to dismiss the application and give you a chance to consult with your clients to prepare, and while we go on with Mr. Joubert, but you are still going to reply. I'm just giving you the benefit of what I'm thinking.
Yes.
Yes.
Chairperson, and I'll limit my submissions to you just to that issue. Now, there's an assertion that 4.5 is vague. The first...
do you want to remove your mask again here so I can hear your points clearly?
Yes. So pardon me, Chairperson. Well, Chairperson, the first assertion that you get from our learned friends, the legal team of the Commission, is that 4.5 is vague, and that it did not point exactly to the aspect of affidavit. Our submission there is that you don't even read 4.5 the way it should be read. That is, you read it to accept, to get out of it its actual meaning. What is being said there is that I propose to this end.
Is it again that letter?
We at page 13. 13.
Yeah, okay.
It says there, to this end, this is in summation of what is there above. And this is after the date you'd see. Colonel Mhlongo proposes that the Commission should avail to him the evidence of Joubert, and that he would respond thereto within the scheme of the rules of the Commission. Now, how does the Commission avail evidence of a person? We have seen throughout that it does so by way of an affidavit, and it gives annexures to that affidavit to the extent that they affect you. How do you respond thereto in the scheme of the rules? You depose to an affidavit and you deal with that evidence. So we submit, Chairperson, that before this Commission, it cannot be contended that, well, evidence here comes in one or other form. We've seen it throughout. Evidence from here comes in the form of an affidavit.
But what you were talking about, as I understood the position, was you were saying somebody such as your client, Mr. Mhlongo, would be entitled to a 3-3 notice whenever there is an affidavit of a witness who implicates him. Now, you understood you to be saying this was not, initially this was not done, but I think after I'd given you a chance to continue, you clarified, if I understood you correctly, that you are not saying it was not sent in July, but you are saying we asked for it 2 times after that, and where there was no response. Now, with with regard to a 3-3 notice, most of the time you would simply say, give me the statement or affidavit.
Yes.
As opposed to, the evidence which could be a transcript, which could, of course, also include an affidavit, or which could include a recording, and so on. So if the letter had made it quite clear you are talking about the affidavit, my inclination would be to try and accommodate you. So I think I would accept the point that says, when you say evidence, you include an affidavit. Okay, that I would accept. But I'm simply saying, your client's position, your instructing attorney's position, as I understand it, was we have not been served with a Rule 3-3 notice in regard to that affidavit. That's what we were asking for. Please give us the third affidavit. But the letter seems to be quite wide and not so specific.
Chair, let me deal with one or two things just arising from that.
Yeah.
The first is this, your context. Remember all along, Colonel Mhlongo takes the position that to the extent that people are relying on that affidavit, I am merely going to put up this affidavit with which he says that affidavit, the first affidavit, is a fabrication. It was not deposed to by me, and that's the end of it. Now, come the 30th, that is post the 30th, we now know there is a change in tune to say, in fact, that affidavit was correct. Now, what you're going to ask for after that date, you're going to ask for the changed tune because you already have the older tune. And that is the context within which we submit. You would look at 4.5. But the second aspect to that is this. If we engage extensively for an hour or thereabout in order to try decipher what this 4.5 actually meant or actually excluded, it means there is some reasonableness in the misreading, one, from their side, and secondly, from our side. We should have perhaps written a better letter on straightforward terms. But be that as it may be, one way or the other, we submitting that Colonel Mhlongo should be given the benefit of the confusion that is here, and that he should be afforded space to prepare and adequately come before the commission. And those would be our submissions.
Well, you see, that point would have some merit if it was a letter written by the legal team, which is vague.
Yes.
But since you were the author, I'm not talking about you.
Yes.
You were the author of the vague letter. You can't benefit from your own vagueness.
Well, that doctrine, I seem to recall, says something about construction against the maker. Now, if we take it to its bare essentials, it appears to have been written by the attorney,
yes.
And therefore we are speaking on a case of Colonel Mhlongo. So.
You are not adding without the benefit of counsel.
But Chairperson, if we accept that really to Mhlongo it becomes an issue, and that there's some and as we've indicated earlier on, we are committed to making a quick turnaround, and we would ask that you favorably consider his application.
Yes.
Thank you, Chairperson.
No, that's fine. I'm going to dismiss the application. I'm not going to give reasons. If you people insist on reasons, you can write and then and ask for them. But you'll get a chance to consult with him while Mr. Joubert gives evidence. If Mr. Joubert takes longer than I expect him to take, you might just be lucky that we adjourn before Colonel Mhlongo has to be called, in which case then we can arrange another date. But for now, the application is dismissed.
As you please, Chairperson.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I would
Yes.
ask to call Mr. Terence Joubert to testify.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Joubert, can you hear us?
Yes, Chair.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Okay, we are waiting for you to appear. Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, I'm just waiting for your picture to be stable. Yes. Okay, you can see both the evidence leader and me.
No, I can't see you, Chair.
You can see me.
Oh, yeah, now it switches between yourself and the evidence leader. Now I can see you.
It should not do that. You should be able to see both of us. Or you should see, I don't know if you, I thought you should see us at the same time, but maybe you should see us as we speak. So if I speak, you see me. If the evidence leader speaks, you see him. So if you can see me now, maybe that's fine. When the evidence leader speaks, then you will see him. All right? Okay, thank you.
Okay, Chair.
Thank you for availing yourself to come and assist the commission, Mr. Joubert. The registrar will administer the oath or affirmation to you.
Okay.
Please state your full names for the record.
Terence John Joubert.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No.
Do you consider the oath binding on your conscience?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you. Then you can continue, Mr. Hurley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
My recollection is that his evidence, apart from the fact that he will have to be asked about the second affidavit, otherwise his evidence, my recollection is that it's reasonably short.
I believe it will be fairly,
Yes.
fairly circumscribed,
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Joubert, just formally, if you could open a bundle, which ought to be in front of you, which is marked Exhibit Y11.
Yes.
Just to recap, Mr. Hurley, we are using bundle LEAN.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay.
Now, if you could turn with me, Mr. Joubert, to page, and in future, I'll refer you to a pagination system, and it will be in the top left-hand corner of the bundle of documents that has been placed before you. So if you turn with me to page LEA 10-211, it's in the top left-hand corner, and it's in black font.
Yes.
You'll see that in the top right-hand corner, there's a numbering system which is in red. I want you to ignore that, the portion that's in red. You understand that?
Okay.
Now, if you can look at the document which is at page 211, and if you could go all the way to page 228.
That's correct.
Could you identify what this document is?
Yes, I do.
Well, is this an affidavit that has been deposed to by you on the, it looks like the 24th of July of 2020?
That's correct, Chair.
And if you turn to page 227, is that your signature?
That's correct, Chair.
Now, if you would turn with me to page 1 of that bundle of documents, sorry, page 211, pardon me.
Yes.
What's the page number?
Page 211.
211.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. It's LEA 10-211 in the top left-hand corner.
Okay.
Now, that's the commencement of the affidavit that has been deposed to for the benefit of your testimony before this commission. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, if I could refer you to another document then, at page LEA 10-230. You have that document?
Just repeat that, please.
It's page 230 of the same bundle. Top left-hand corner, 230.
230. That's correct. I've got it.
And then if you go to page 232,
That's correct.
there's a signature of on that page, at the foot of the page, and it's dated the 25th of November of 2013. Whose signature is that?
It's my signature.
And if you would turn with me to page LEA 306 in the same bundle.
Did you say 206?
It's 306, Mr. Chair.
306.
Pardon me.
Yes.
And if you turn with me to the following, to page 308, there's a signature over there, roughly in the middle of the page, and it seems to be an affidavit dated
308, you said?
That is correct.
Yes.
And that purports to be an affidavit dated 1 February 2016, whose signature appears on that page above the words or the name Terence J. Joubert. Whose signature is that?
Yeah, it resembles my signature.
Well, I ask, whose signature is it?
My signature, Chair.
Now, would it be fair to say that these are three separate affidavits that have all been deposed to by you? The three documents that are...
That's correct, Chair.
Now, I want us to deal...
That's correct.
Before I take you through to the content of the affidavit, or any of the affidavits, I want you to first deal with the circumstances. All three affidavits seem to deal, and you'll correct me, of course, if I'm wrong, but they deal with...
Mr. Halley, don't you want to request me to admit each one of them
My sincere apologies, Mr.
after
Chair.
he has confirmed?
My sincere apologies. If you, if you would admit the affidavit together with all the annexures of Mr. Joubert, Mr. Chair, as Exhibit Y10,
Well,
sorry, Y11,
take
pardon me.
one affidavit at a time and make the request, and then tell me what exhibit number it should be.
So
then
it's-
I'll do that. Then we do each one of them separately.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is Exhibit Y11, the main affidavit, which is at page 211.
Is this the first affidavit?
That's the first affidavit. It runs to page 228.
It should be exhibit
Y11.
Y11. The affidavit of Mr. Terence John Joubert, starting at page 211, is admitted together with its annexures
And it has,
hang on,
pardon me,
and is to be marked as exhibit Y11.
thank you, Mr. Chair. That affidavit has attached to it the annexures to which, amongst which I've just referred to. So they're all annexures to the Exhibit Y11.
As long as they are annexures, we have said
It's one
it's
exhibit,
together with all the annexures to it.
correct.
Yeah, so they are annexures to the affidavit.
They are all annexures to that affidavit.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, just to confirm, before we get into the actual content of the affidavit, Mr. Joubert,
I'm sorry, aren't you going to the second affidavit and the third affidavit for each one of them to be admitted as an exhibit on its own, or are they annexures to the main affidavit?
the other two affidavits that I've referred to, the one which is dated 25 November 2013,
The second and the third?
and the third affidavit, those are annexures, sorry,
To the main
the first
affidavit.
and the second affidavit, okay, pardon me, Mr. Chair. The first affidavit that I've referred to now is the one which is dated July of 2020. And attached to that are two other affidavits as part of the various annexures which are attached to it. So they actually annexures to the main affidavit.
Oh, okay, so they are not standalone
They're not standalone documents.
exhibits, okay, so. All right then, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, if you would turn with me to page 235, Mr. Chair.
200 and
35. 235,
35.
correct?
Yes.
Now, this purports to be
Okay.
It purports to be an email that is from you, which appears to be dated the 25th of November 2013, and it's addressed to Mxolisi N, MXOLISIN, at
That's
Telkom SA.
Ngasana. That's Ngasana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Nkasana. Well, firstly, let me ask you this.
That's correct.
Who is that email addressed to?
That email is addressed to Mr. Ngasana, as well as CC to Mr. Duma.
What page is the email?
Page 2, LEA 10-235, Mr. Chair.
235.
That is correct.
Okay, all right.
It's annexure TJJ2 to the main affidavit.
Okay. What does the email say?
Could you just read the email into the record for us, please, Mr. Joubert?
Well, he might not need to read it if it's long. I haven't reached it.
It's
He
a very
could just
brief.
say what,
It says,
what
dear,
it was saying.
thank you, Mr. Chair. It says, dear NDPP, attached, please find a copy of my affidavit. Regards, Terence. Is that correct, Mr. Joubert?
That's correct, Chair.
And the affidavit that is purportedly attached to that document is that which appears at page 230 to 230 of the same bundle to 233. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair.
And the Terence referred to in the email at page 235, is that you?
Yes, Chair, that is me.
Okay, all right. And the NDPP that you sent the email to was Mr. Ngasana, is that right?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right. Continue, Mr. Ali.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you just very briefly give us a background to the circumstances in which you prepared this email and sent it to Mr. Ngasana?
Okay, shall I assume that you will let him start with, when you say circumstance, you let him start with the conversation and then?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, all
Thank
right.
So if you can go back to the circumstances in which you compile, why is it that you compiled this affidavit? What did the affidavit deal with? It to Mr. Ngasana.
Okay. On the
Well, maybe,
18th,
I'm sorry, Mr. Joubert. I'm sorry, Mr. Joubert. I may have missed this, Mr. Hali. Did we cover the question of who he works for or who he worked for at the time, what position he held, and so on?
Pardon me, Mr. Chair. Let me just understand, where are you currently employed and where were you employed in 2013?
currently I'm employed with the National Prosecuting Authorities, working at the Asset Forfeiture Unit. And in 2013, I was the acting regional manager at for risk management, also for the NPA.
What is your current position?
My current position, I'm a senior financial investigator.
Okay, all right. At the NPA.
Now,
At the NPA, that's correct, sir.
Yes. Based in Durban.
are you based
That's
in
correct, based in Durban.
And in 2013, were you also based in Durban?
That's correct, Chair. I was based in Durban.
Okay, all right. Continue, Mr. Halle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, in 2013, were you familiar with Colonel Mhlongo?
That's correct, Chair. I knew Colonel Mhlongo. We were sharing the same office space on the same floor where I was sitting.
Now, is it correct that in 2013, you had a conversation with Colonel Mhlongo which led to a recording that you've prepared.
Yeah, I would like to start off by saying the reason why I had Colonel Mhlongo in my office to start off with. I got a call from Advocate Molele about a request that was made by this Colonel Mhlongo to him via telephone, where he requested Advocate Molele to assist in either getting rid or assist Bobby Motawung for some stadiums that he was involved in, and this didn't sit well with Advocate Molele. He reported the matter to me as the person in charge of risk. This Colonel Mhlongo at the time was seconded to the exhumation unit. I forgot what they were called at the time, so they were housed at the NPA building. And so after listening to the complaint by Advocate Molele, I then called.
Hang on one second.
WF.
Hang on one second, Mr. Joubert.
Yeah.
Who was Colonel Mhlongo employed by at the time? Was he also?
He was employed by.
Sorry?
No, by the police. He was seconded. He was employed by the police, but he was seconded to this task team, this
exhumation unit or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
yeah.
So you
I think they were called TRT.
Okay. So you were working for the NPA. He was working for the Hawks, but seconded to the NPA or what? Is that right?
Yes, he was working for the police. I don't know which unit he was, from, but he was working for the police, and
yes.
He was seconded to the NPA.
Okay.
After listening,
hang on. Advocate Molele that you're talking about, you say he gave you a call. He phoned you. Is that right?
Yes, sir. He called me, yes.
And he had a complaint to convey to you. What was the complaint about, or what was he complaining about? Or is that, you don't need to go into the details, but the complaint related to certain people that he had a certain complaint, but that complaint is not of importance to the particular matter we're dealing with. Is that right? Is that right?
That's correct.
As a result of that complaint, you called Colonel Mhlongo.
Yes, I called Colonel Mhlongo.
Okay, all right. Continue from there.
To speak to him about. I then called Colonel Mhlongo. We then spoke about the complaint, and I told him that obviously this is not allowed here, and it could get him into trouble, or actually to be removed from the NPA. Fine, he apologized, and but while we were together, he got a phone call.
Yes.
I don't know what, the first phone call, I don't know what he was saying to the person, but the second phone call was when I realized that I need to record this guy. We just spoke. I reprimanded him, not reprimanded per se, but I spoke to him as a friend, because we were friends rather than enemies. So I spoke to him, and while still in my office, you now talk about dealing with Ngasana, etc., murder investigation. So that is when I started recording this guy.
But just pause if I might, Mr. Chair. Just give us some context, because you say he starts talking about Nkosana, about murder, and so forth. Let's just break it out. What happens in the conversation, and what exactly is he referring to when you say he talks about Nkosana? Now, we know that Nkosana is the National Director of Public Prosecutions, but just to place that in context, when was Mr. Nkosana appointed, as far as you recall, as the National Director of Public Prosecutions?
To be honest with you, it is actually during that time that Ngasana was appointed. I can't tell you for the life of me the exact date he was appointed, but it was during that time that he was going around to be introduced to the rest of the NPA that this thing happened.
Also, so when you had this discussion with Colonel Mhlongo, it had not been a long time after Mr. Ngasana had started his duty as the NTPP.
That's correct, Chair. That's correct.
He was still busy visiting various NPA offices to introduce himself.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, Mr. Halley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, you say that he started speaking about Mr. Nkosana. Just tell us about the content of what he was saying in relation to Mr. Nkosana.
I remembered that he mentioned that there was supposed to be a murder investigation in Umlazi somewhere that has to do with where Ngasana was the suspect, and he was referring to this individual that he was talking to about that. He also mentioned the fact that Ngasana's wife was working for RAF, and how they can try and get enough information from RAF. This is him still on the phone, not talking to me as yet. And it so happened that during that time, he mentioned that they can deal with Ngasana as they dealt with Joubert. I don't know who Joubert is. I've never, but I just, that was in a nutshell what he was conversing with on his phone in my office. So now, based on that, the statement he made is that he said Joubert is the best person for the job. This guy, with all these criminal things that he has, he should not have been appointed. That's when I started recording the conversation. The conversation from there is obviously on record, and I think it was made available to all. I don't know whether you want me to go into that.
Mr.
Halley will lead you.
Well, we'll get there in a moment. So if I can ask you to turn with me, pardon, to page 242 of the same bundle.
Yes.
And that goes up to page 250.
That's correct, Chair.
Could you identify this document?
Just one sec, Mr. Halley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Joubert,
Yes.
when
Yes, Chair.
when you were telling me what you had in terms of the conversation between Colonel Mhlongo in the second call with whoever he was speaking to, your evidence was a little disjointed. I would like you to try and just give me in point form to say what I picked up from that conversation was the following: 1, 2, 3. Are you able to do that?
Yes, Chair, I could. Yes, what I picked up from his conversation, his conversation on the second telephone call he had, was that one, they were busy with an investigation against Ngasan. Two, they were trying to find something on Ngasana at RAF. Three, the fact that Joubert was not appointed was a problem. That is the problem. That is what I picked up personally.
You said something about Gumede earlier on.
Yes, he mentioned that they could do the same as Gumede. Now, as I said earlier on, I don't know who Gumede is. I don't know how he fits into this picture, but he mentioned Gumede during that conversation of his. Those are the 4 things that I picked up.
Well, didn't you say earlier on there was mention of Meda and there was mention of, Meda?
Yeah, I did say that, and I did count it in. Murder investigation, RAF, the appointment of Joubert, and this Gumede thing, Gumede that I don't know.
Yes. Okay, all right. Continue, Mr. Halley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, at what stage did you commence recording the conversation?
As soon as I heard all these, I obviously had to wait until an opportune time where he was turned away from me in order for me to take out my recorder from the drawer that I had it in and stick it under the newspaper that was on my desk and record. So obviously I couldn't record immediately. I had to wait for an opportune time to do so.
In other words, you had to wait until he was distracted in order for you to start recording.
Yes.
Now,
Well, I'm not sure whether he had to wait until he was distracted. It may mean that he simply had to wait until he could put the device without Mhlongo seeing that. Is that correct? Yeah, okay.
thank you, Mr. Joubert. Now, the document that I've just referred you to at page 242 to 250 of the bundle. You've seen that document before, have you?
That's correct, Chair.
And can you identify what that document is?
These are the transcripts of the recording.
Very well. Now, and we'll get into the transcripts in a moment. In relation to the discussion that you had with with Colonel Mhlongo, what did he convey to you insofar as these issues are concerned, i.e. the murder issue, the RAF, the Gumede, and so forth? Did he convey anything to you directly as opposed to the person on the other end of that telephone conversation?
Yeah, after he dropped the call, he then turned to me, and what he asked me was to arrange, if I knew anybody at RAF that I could link him up with. And then he elaborated that he needs somebody there that could get records of what Ngasana got from RAF, meaning work that was given to him. He also then mentioned that Ngasana's wife works for RAF.
Very well. I'll ask you to turn to page 35 of the bundle. Sorry, page 245. Pardon me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
And if you would just read for the benefit of the chairperson and, of course, for the record, if you could read from line 11 onwards, sorry, line 16 onwards, pardon me.
Hang on one second. Sorry, Mr. Joubert, I may have missed this.
Okay.
Is the document starting at page 242, the transcript of a conversation that happened between you and Colonel Mhlongo after he had finished on his telephone conversation that you are talking about? What is that?
Yes.
That noise, I think it's
Yes,
for
Chair.
the second time. Hang on one second, Mr. Joubert, don't forget your answer. What is that?
I have no idea. I'm not sure if it's in the room as opposed to their room. I'm not sure that it's coming from here.
Where is Reverend Stimela? Well, maybe the technicians will know whether it's connected with.
There certainly was a sound.
Yes,
I'm not sure what it
it's
is.
the second time it's happening. Okay, let us continue. Hopefully somebody will tell us what's happening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so my question was whether the document that starts at page 242 is a transcript of
Yes.
a conversation that you and Colonel Mhlongo had after he had finished on his second call.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, all right. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And have you had an opportunity to read through this transcript and to verify whether it accords with your recollection or with your recording?
Yes, Chair, I have.
And does it in fact accord with your recording, or is there anything that you think ought to be changed?
Yes, it definitely highlights the recording, most of the recording, I would say. There was merely a few errors that was made by the person that transcribed this, but it is very minimal.
Okay, so if we can start, and I'd like to get to a specific passage, but before we do so, if we can start at page 243, that's where the recording commences. Have you got that?
Yes.
Yeah, that noise happens again. Where is it?
I think it's somewhere in the room that is occupied by Mr. Joubert.
Is the noise coming from the room where you are, Mr. Joubert? Oh, is it supposed to happen or it's not supposed to happen in terms of the setup? Is there a way
Yes,
to avoid it
is
happening?
from this room. We are in a boardroom here, the NPA offices.
Or is it somebody working It's like somebody's.
I should think so.
Is it something that you can prevent, that you can
I
stop?
should think so.
Or is it something that can be avoided? Or you don't know, you would need to check first?
The walls are written, yes, sir.
Okay, no, that's fine. Let's continue. If it happens again, then maybe we could take a short adjournment and you can see if you can talk to somebody.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Chair.
Okay, all right.
Now, the first part of the recording or the transcription commences with Colonel Welcome Mhlongo, right at the top of the page. Do you see that?
Yes, Chair. Okay.
Now, at that stage, is he conversing with you, or is he still conversing with the person on the other end of the phone?
No, at that time, Chair, you are still conversing with somebody on the telephone and not with me.
Now,
what portions of this document reflect, or what portion of this document reflects the conversation Colonel Mhlongo was having?
Mr. Joubert, I've been asked to request that when you answer, that you try to remain as still as possible, that you not move from side to side. Otherwise,
It's in order.
Thank you.
Noted.
From page 243, from line 10 on that page onwards, that's a conversation that's taken place between you and Colonel Mhlongo, is that correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Did Colonel Mhlongo report to you at that time as somebody who, for the duration of his secondment to the NPA at that time?
No, Chair.
He was not reporting
He
to
was
you?
reporting to, no, he was merely just using an office space that I had on the floor that I was occupying. But he was reporting to the Deborahs of this world downstairs.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like you to move on to page LEA 10-245.
Why do you change, Mr. Hali?
Pardon me.
Why do you change from using the last 3 digits or 2 digits to mention the page?
I just forget from time to time, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
but it should be 245.
Especially because I take it this is the only bundle we are using.
This is the only bundle.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair. If you could, from line 15 onwards, just take us through what has been said over there. First, read it into the record, and if there's any portions of that you believe ought to be changed.
Okay.
If you can
No, I mean,
Sorry, Mr. Joubert. Once again, you're out of picture again. Is it? I'm not sure how you've been recorded. Is it on a laptop that you've been recorded?
yes.
Okay. Maybe let's do it this way. From paragraph 15 on page 243, Mr. Joubert,
Yes, sir.
it reflects that Colonel Mhlongo said this. They are indistinct to do justice, so now they are complaining that as we do things here, we do their things, and we said to them, and our job is to investigate and exhume and transport remains this function things.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
If I may interrupt you, I'm sorry, I
Yes.
was actually referring to page 245.
Oh,
My
is that
sincere
so?
apologies.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, maybe it's going to be faster if you read it for him and maybe
Yes.
ask him to
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
to say what a particular part is about.
According to the transcription, it says that from line 15 onwards, it says, no, I mean the whole. Our whole point here is one collection. No, no, no. Our thing here with the boss, these guys from RAF tomorrow morning, all I'm going to do, I will link you up with them so that you can get all the documentation. The thing that I do not want is not, I am just bringing A to B. And then Colonel Welcome Mhlongo says yes. And then you say at line 20, these people of yours, I do not want to know them. I do not want to know them, you see. I go to you, I say to you, WS, go and see so-and-so. That is because if it comes back and this woman, okay, she gets the post back, then it's indistinct, and then it continues through these guys. Now, just that portion, what has been discussed over there, and is there any portion of that which you wish to change? In other words, where the transcription is inaccurate.
Yes.
Tell me.
Yes, Chair. What is happening here is our discussion. Hello?
Continue.
Yeah, what is happening here is, remember earlier on I made mention of the fact that there was a discussion between about RAF wanting assistance, guys that would be able to get information for him at RAF. And this is my response to him in stating that, yes, I can. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
What I did here is basically just confirming with him that I would source the guys from RAF. I don't know anybody at RAF, by the way, just to let you know that. I made him believe that I would bring A to B, him and his team of investigators that are investigating this RAF matter, or want information on the RAF matter, to the guys that I'm supposed to arrange. That was the first section. The second section of my answer is I made mention that I don't want to see his guys. He had two guys, two cops. I don't know them. They were in plain clothes. They were apparently from Umlazi that were working with him on this. So what I mentioned in the second stint is I don't want to meet his guys. I just want him A to B, and then they don't even have to know that I hooked them up with with the guys from RAF. So that is the lady. What I want to add in here, we are specifically referring to Joubert in this instance. My conversation with Mhlongo here, which is indistinct, it made mention of Joubert. I don't know, the person that did this, that transcribed this, might have missed that part. And it is actually on after listening to the recording, it is actually there.
So let me just understand. You're saying that you actually listened to the recording. In addition to reading this transcript, you've actually listened to the recording.
That's correct, Chair. That's correct.
And you're saying that there's a portion of the recording that's not captured in the transcript, is that correct?
That is correct, Chair.
And where should that portion go in? On the transcript as it stands? Could you just tell us where?
Just before that indistinct gap, that is where it should go.
Very well. Now,
Is that at 245?
at page 245, at line 23, Mr. Chair.
225?
That is correct. Sorry, 245, pardon me, Mr. Chair.
Oh.
245, my apologies.
245, yeah, that's where I was. The only indistinct I can see here is at line 6. Mhlongo, indistinct, wanted to do that.
It's at line 23 that the witness is referring to, Mr. Chair.
Oh, 23. Okay. So, Mr. Joubert, from line 20 at page 245, you are reflected as having said to Mhlongo, these people of yours, I do not want to know them. I do not want to know them. You see, I go to, I say to you, WS, go and see so-and-so. That is it, because if it comes back and this woman, okay, she gets the post back indistinct through these guys. That's what it says. So you are saying where it says indistinct, what has been left out includes Ms. Jiba's name.
That's correct.
Okay, what was the point about Ms. Jiba that was being made by yourself here?
The point of if she gets a post back,
Yes.
I'm referring to Jiba.
Oh,
It
okay.
is part and parcel of that recording.
Yes.
And just to place that in context, when you speak about Advocate Jiba getting a post back, you're referring to the fact that she had, prior to the appointment of Mr. Nkosana as the National Director of Public Prosecution.
We have to.
You'll have to
stop.
excuse me. There was just a noise here that I couldn't hear. Please repeat that question, sir.
Yeah, no, we are going to adjourn for a few minutes to enable you, to give you a chance to talk to somebody. Maybe they can do whatever later or some other time when we are done. So just make the request. Is that all right?
I'll guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess it will be 5 minutes.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, we adjourn for 5 minutes.
Okay.
Mr. Joubert? Mr. Joubert? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, it's Reverend Stemele from the hearing venue. I noticed that you are using your device. Please put it completely on silent and please switch all other devices around you. Make sure that they are completely off. The one that you're using, take it off vibration and completely put it on silent, please. Because the message is coming through the device vibrate. The message is coming through the device vibrate and then they're disturbing the proceedings. Thank you, sir.
Yes, noted.
Yeah, please
Noted.
completely put it on silent, take it off vibration, and please switch everything else around you.
Can't I use this thing? Can't I use my, I think I've got a tablet here. Yeah. Reverend, maybe you can assist me with connecting the tablet instead of this thing.
Okay, cool.
Because really, I can't.
Yes.
Have you got your?
Okay, we'll try and assist you with that. Thank you.
Okay, Reverend, have you sent the...
Mr. Joubert? Mr. Joubert? See, please unmute. Thank you. Now you're in a very dark place.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, yes, William.
Yeah. Okay, we're just linking up to his tablet.
Okay.
Give us about.
Okay, cool.
Give us a minute.
All right. I just want to see his sitting position as well. Thank you. Mr. Joubert, are you ready?
Yes, I'm almost ready. I'm just setting up a better device
Thank you.
so that I could hear you properly. Do I?
Okay. Reverend?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we're closing this link now.
First connect with the other link. It doesn't matter so that I can see if you are online.
I beg your pardon, say that again?
Yeah, you can turn that one off because there's a feedback. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
There we go.
What we need to do
There we go.
is this device. Yeah, this device here.
Yes.
Just take.
Please unmute your video there quickly.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Just test.
Please show us your picture,
Yes, sir.
please. Unmute your video, Mr. Joubert. There we go.
Done.
Okay, will you just please push your device a little bit back so that we can clearly see your face? Unmute your video. There we go. There we go.
Yes.
Okay. Please close the blinds behind you. That shiny light behind you is disturbing there. Just close the blinds. Thank you.
Can I just? Yeah.
You can sit down. It's fine. Okay. There we go. Please give the feed, Tumza, to the van. It's too bright though, eh? Ishap. 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 Mr. Joubert,
Yes, sir.
can you hear us clearly now?
Loud and clear.
Okay, are all your devices off now, sir? Your phone off?
All of them are off.
And,
Off.
and everybody's phone around off, please. You're about to resume.
Yeah, I spoke to the guys in the other offices and they'll give us time to do this quietly.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Obiven, are you good and ready for us to go?
Yes.
Thank you. Merci. Good to go.
Now I'm getting hot. Oh my God. It's using my data here.
We're about to start, Mr. Joubert. Please get ready. Thank you.
Except what's your phone? You can switch it off for half an hour. Oh.
Okay, let's continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Joubert, if we could just, before the brief adjournment, just to sum up you were talking about page 245 of the bundle at lines 15 to 20. Were you finished with your explanation about what you were discussing over there?
That's correct.
Thank you. Now, there's a reference here, if I just ask you about two things. If you go back to line 16, it says, our thing here with the boss. Who's the boss that's been referred to?
The boss that is being referred to here is actually Ngasan.
And then further down at line 20, 21, 22, you say, that is because if it comes back and this woman, okay, she gets the post back, something in distinct, which you say includes Joubert, through these guys. Who's the reference to this woman?
The woman that I'm referring to here is Joubert.
And just to place in context, just before the adjournment, I was asking you about the circumstances in which Joubert, because you talk about getting her post back. Now, this is in 2013, specifically in November of 2013. At the time, you testified early on that Mr. Nkosana had only just taken over as the National Director of Public Prosecutions, and he was still going around to introduce himself to people. Who was the National Director of Public Prosecutions or the acting National Director of Public Prosecutions prior to that?
Ms. Joubert was the acting Director of Public Prosecutions before Ngasana was appointed.
And when you talk about getting a job back, precisely or more or less, what is it that the two of you are referring to? Obviously, I understand that the job that
Getting the NDP.
Sorry. Understand that the job that you're referring to that she will get back is that of the National Director of Public Prosecutions. But what I'm asking you is, what point are the two of you making that she will get her job back? Why would she get her job back?
In other words, what was the context?
Remember,
In other words, what was the context of this statement about her getting her post back?
The context under which this thing was said is as follows. She would get a job back if these guys can get all these things that we spoke about, RAF, the murder docket, etc., against Ngasana. In order for him to be left out of his seat, she would then be given back. That is the context that we are discussing here.
In order for him to what? To do what?
In order for Joubert to get her job back, this guy, welcome Mhlongo and his team, ought to go and gather as much as he can in order for them to make a case against Ngasana in order for him to be taken off that NDPP post that he was
occupying.
Yes.
Okay, let's try and get this clear. You talk about here bringing A to B. What were you talking about when you referred to you were just bringing A to B? What were you talking about?
What I was referring to there, Chair, is A was Mhlongo and his team. B was the gentlemen from RAF that would supposedly assist them in getting the information they're looking for. That is what I meant there.
Who was going to ensure that A and B got together?
Me, I was going to get Mhlongo to these RAF guys to get the information that he's looking for.
Yes. Had he asked you to assist him to get information from RAF for him and his team?
That's correct, Chair.
What information did he say he was looking for that he wanted you to get for him?
The information he was looking for was what work that Ngasana get from RAF. Because of the fact that his wife was working there, or is working there, he was under the impression that Ngasana got a lot of work from RAF.
And did you want to see how good Ngasana was as a lawyer in RAF work? What was the significance of this information?
I think he wanted to know whether Ngasana did not embezzle some funds from RAF. That was my understanding.
What did he say he wanted this information to use it for?
He said to me that, let me paraphrase. He asked me, do you know anybody at RAF that could assist us with information? We want to see whether Ngasana got work from RAF because his wife works there, and see whether he did not embezzle RAF monies. That was it in a nutshell.
So he was looking for information that could reveal that Mr. Ngasana may have been involved in some wrongdoing.
That's correct, Chair. That's correct.
Yes. So, and did you then offer to assist him, that is Colonel Mhlongo, to meet with people that you knew at RAF?
Yes, I offered that. I offered him that.
Yes.
But I don't know anybody at RAF.
Oh, why did you?
I made him believe that I made him believe that I will assist him.
Yes. And why did you make him believe that you could assist him when you didn't know anybody there? What was the, what did you want to achieve yourself?
I needed to understand what was this guy up to. That was it.
Yes.
It was not to assist him per se.
Yes. So you didn't mean to carry out, to honor this promise?
That's correct, Chair.
Yes. Okay, all right. So after you had made this promise to him, what happened then in your conversation? Mr. Halley, you can take it from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we can just move forward to the following page. That's at page 246. Mr. Joubert?
Well, maybe before you do that, did your conversation continue with you and Colonel Mhlongo after you had undertaken to facilitate a meeting between him and his team on the one hand and some people from RAF on the other?
Yes, Chair. Our conversation continued.
Okay, Mr. Halley, take it from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, if you look at page 246, at approximately line 10, this is you speaking again. You say, another thing we have, like this murder case of yours now, the uncle and all that. Guys, we must not sleep on top of information. We must get whatever we can get our hands on. Rather, we must hurry up, because tomorrow, as you say, this woman is in a hurry. Even us, we want to know where are we going, because we do not want to stay here. Then it's indistinct, followed by and then there's an intervention, and he says, as Colonel Mhlongo says, I'm struggling to eat from the drug addicts. In brackets it says, I'm a para. Now, this portion over here, another thing we have like this murder case of yours now. What are you referring to?
I'm referring to the information that he gave me, that they are investigating, him and his team are investigating a murder case in the Umlazi area against Ngasana. And this is just me telling him that he mustn't sleep on the information, he must hurry up. But I basically wanted to get this part of the murder case that is investigated into our conversation.
Now, That part of the conversation, because this is you raising it, that part of the conversation, when you say you want to get it into the conversation, where did the idea or the understanding of that murder case come from? Where did you get it from?
I got it from him, but it came way before the recording started. There was a conversation that we had. That is how I got to know of the murder case that he's investigating. Remember, I mentioned the 4 things that he made mention: the murder case, the RAF, Joubert, and this Gumede guy. That is where it came out.
Okay. Now, when you say over here, when you said earlier on that you were trying to get this into the conversation, just explain what you mean by that.
Remember, there are things that he said before I started recording. And because of that, as you would see that, like for argument's sake, Gumede is nowhere to be mentioned in this recording. But I know about Gumede because of the conversation we had prior. So so too the murder case. I did not know that Ngasana had a murder case against him. I heard it from him. So I knew what I was doing now, recording this guy. And I wanted him to mention this murder case in the recording now.
Very well. In other words, what you said is that you wanted the recording to capture the conversation that had taken place prior to you commencing, or prior to you to switching on the recording device.
That's correct, sir.
And you wanted that captured on the actual recording itself.
That's correct, sir.
Now, you say over here, this murder case of yours, why do you refer to it as the murder case of yours, of him?
I merely wanted to say the murder case that you mentioned, that should have been the correct line, against Ngasana. So that is why I said the murder case of his. But that is what I meant with it.
Right. And then you got 2 lines down.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hali.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair.
Where is that part that you are on with Mr. Joubert? I was at 246 and moved to 247.
It's line 11, Mr. Chair.
Of which page?
Of 246.
246.
We're still on page 246.
Oh, okay. Okay, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think it will continue for about 5 minutes and adjourn. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're going to say, brother,
so I suspect Mr. Malala and his team are happy.
They say in silent prayers, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're going to say, brother, we must hurry up because tomorrow, as you say, this woman is in a hurry. Who is the reference to this woman is in a hurry?
This woman, I'm referring to Joubert when I refer to this woman in this context.
Okay. And when you say that she's in a hurry, where did you get that from, the fact that she's in a hurry? And what is it that she's in a hurry for?
I got that from Colonel Mhlongo, that this woman is in a hurry for the information, for us to get, or for them to get the information.
And then he goes on to say, at line 15, he says, I'm struggling to eat from the drug addicts, in brackets, Amapara. Do you know what he's referring to?
I've got no idea, Chair. I've got absolutely no idea what he meant by that.
Well, I think in certain parts of the country, they will know what you're talking about if you talk about Amapara. You know that, Mr. Joubert? Or not?
I know what
know.
he was referring to. I'm talking about the context in which he made the statement. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Otherwise, you know
but I know what
Amapara.
Amapara is.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Amapara, I know.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Then, if we could continue on page 247.
I'm sorry, Mr. Halley, I may have missed this. Mr. Joubert,
Yes, Chair.
we are into the conversation between you and Mr. Mhlongo now. But at a certain stage, prior to, maybe not prior to you recording, maybe when he had finished his call and started talking to you, did he explain to you how he came to be involved in this assignment in codes? Maybe you have explained it and I missed it. Did he explain to you how he came to be involved in this investigation to find something, some information about Mr. Ngasana?
Chair, the only thing he mentioned was the fact that he told me he is investigating a murder case against Ngasana. He also told me that Ngasana was not the correct person for the job. And he's trying to assist Joubert in getting a seat back. So,
In getting?
could I assist him getting a seat back?
Or the position?
So, can I? Yes.
The position of, she was acting NDPP before Mr. Ngasana was appointed. When Mr. Ngasana was appointed
That's
as
correct.
NDPP, she ceased to be acting NDPP. And you are saying that Colonel Mhlongo said he was assisting her to get that position back. Is that what you are saying?
That's what I'm saying, Chair.
Okay, all right.
Well, to take that one step further, was there any indication of who had given him this assignment, this instruction, this asked him to conduct this investigation?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I'm in no position to say who gave him the instruction. The only thing that I am saying is what I heard from him.
Yeah.
Whether he got it from Joubert, I would not be in a position to say, yay, whether it actually happened or not. But that was what I got from him.
Sure. But the question I'm asking you is, irrespective of where as a fact he got the instruction or the mandate from, I'm asking you, did he tell you where you got the instruction or the mandate from?
Yes,
And?
he got it from Joubert.
Now, if we
So was the point you were making a minute ago that you have no personal knowledge as to where he got the instructions from? But the point you are making now is that he told you that he got the instructions from Ms. Joubert. Is that what you are saying? I just want to understand exactly what you are saying.
That's exactly what I'm saying, Chair.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
And did he tell you what exactly Ms. Joubert said he should do, or he and his team should do for her?
I said earlier on, there were 4 things that he wanted me to do that I mentioned already in my previously. And he said it was to collect whatever I can, of whatever he can, for the investigation against Ngasan.
Okay, all right. I think we need to stop here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Mr. Joubert, we are going to adjourn today. We unfortunately didn't make as much progress as one had hoped. But I think that's because of Mr. Malala's client's postponement application. But it needed to be dealt with before we could proceed. We are going to have to adjourn. Mr. Hali, I'm having in mind that attempts should be made for us to continue with Mr. Joubert's evidence sometime next week.
I'm in your hands, Mr. Chair. I'll make myself available.
Yes. I'm thinking of Thursday, if we make it an evening session. And the advantage of an evening session, Mr. Malala and your team, is that in case during the day you were in court, in the evening you would not be in court ordinarily, and you might be available. It might be easy to be available in the evening. And to the extent that you would like to be there to be here when Mr. Joubert continues with his evidence, that's what I'm having in mind. That is maybe starting at 4, but we could start at 5 if that would make a difference in your availability. But also, I would like that when he does finish with his evidence, Mr. Mhlongo be ready, and I'm quite happy to allow that Mr. Mhlongo gives his evidence via video link, as he was going to do today, and Mr. Joubert may also do so. And if you, as Colonel Mhlongo's counsel, wish to appear virtually also on that occasion, I grant you that leave. How does that sound to you?
Chairperson, based on the permission for us as well to appear through a virtual link, it removes the obstacles that may have, or those that would have been there. So we should be able to attend.
Yes. Okay, all right.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Joubert, would you be available on Thursday next week, maybe about 4 or 5 o'clock, to continue with your evidence remotely?
Yes, yes, Chair, I'll avail myself.
Yes. Okay, all right. Mr. Malala, do you think it's fine if we say 4 o'clock, or would you prefer 5 o'clock?
Chair, as I had earlier indicated, we're going to be in Mafikeng.
Yeah.
And we're assuming we might finish early, arrive back or find a way, but if the latest is 5 that is available, we'll try work our best around it. We are through council. As I come along, he might still be there.
Okay, I'm not sure if, I think because of the mask, I'm not hearing everything.
Pardon me, Chairperson.
Yes.
We are appearing as true counsel for Mr. Mhlongo. So in the event that I join and that I join later.
Or the other counsel would be available from 4?
Available, yes.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, all right. We are going to adjourn for the day, and we'll adjourn Mr. Joubert's evidence to Thursday next week at 4 o'clock. And as I've said, he will continue to give his evidence remotely, and counsel for Mr. Mhlongo, if it suits them to appear virtually, they may do so as well. Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
we adjourn.
Thank you, Chair.